All right, so first question, is there a way we can see trending for a client on health or effort for a specific client? So we don't have a large report on that right now, although that is something that we're building toward. So we will be able to do that. But within customer detail, when you are in either of those tabs, so if I go to health metrics, you can see the little spark line over time. So we have captured the data. We just don't have it reported out anywhere more gracefully than this. Same thing with effort. So you can see how it is trending over time. We knew we needed to start capturing the data early on, so we did. But again, we're building the report out to make it so you'd actually see the numbers and how it's gone up or down, etc. So that was number one. Number two, can a note field be added for the categories in effort and health? The purpose is to document why a score was rated the way it was, for example, notating an incident that occurred in each period. So that is on the roadmap. I've had conversations with a couple partners since our last customer success, and what they would like is a point in time if I click into and change, if I was in health metrics and changed the sentiment score to be able to say, I'm changing it to this because I had a call X, Y, or Z. So that one is one that is in the roadmap hopper that I talked to the product team about. Yesterday, there was some slowness in it, but I'm not seeing it in it today. So hopefully if you see it now, let me know and I'll have them check the logs, but I do believe they addressed whatever that was. And can I go over the template piece for the effort metric?
Right where you are.
Okay. Yep.
Where it says life cycle DFLT. When I went in to change that under the account settings, I wasn't able to choose a different template, and I thought I should be able to there. Maybe it could be user error. We'll never deny that.
Oh, in here? Okay,
yeah.
So you can add another assessment and delete that one, but you can't, so you can have two, you can have one, but if you want to get rid of this one, you have to consciously decide to get rid of it. We're just trying to save you from yourself.
That's perfect. That's I didn't, those little plus signs in the corner always kill me.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Also, while we're on this page, hopefully you've noticed before you kind of had to go into an individual client to see the math on how it was calculating. I definitely think I need to clean up the demo site because I've got a lot of scores going on, but this is actually showing you how the customer success metrics are explained. So you can see for both health and effort that it's actually giving you the math now. Check and chat. The Crewwho integration, I would bet within a month. So that one is actually something they are working on now. Good question. So that'll be able to pull over customer health, metric for another CSAT opportunity. So I want to talk through some other new pieces that I set up the plumbing for the release that's coming out next weekend. So in Scheduler, this is now live, so everybody can go and check. You can now see the tiles of how many are completed, to be delivered, past due, skipped, canceled, etc. One of the things that if you didn't have it as part of your process, I think we really want to start making sure we include as part of the process is when you are in an individual business review itself, that you want to make sure to assign an account manager as well as the ability to score business reviews. You only see these business review standards if thought I heard door knocking. My daughter locked herself out. Nah, you lucked me out. So the business review standards questions, you will only see if you have customer success, but you can make any of these questions. You can edit all of these or create your own. So let's talk about why we might want to start scoring business reviews. We had a conversation one time on our weekly workshop with Joe and Abby and Alex from Acellus, who talked about really wanting to be able to define momentum of a partner. So this morning I was thinking about momentum in general, and is it an object at rest stays in rest until an action is taken upon it, right? Until something acts upon it. And if you think about it, if you're not doing business reviews for your partners, then the action that typically happens to a partner is a negative something, a breach, a ransomware attack, something stops working. And so that kind of drags the business down versus a positive interaction, which would be a business review where we're talking strategy, gaining forward momentum with a client. So when we had these conversations around how can we start tracking our business that way, they wanted to answer these specific questions because they had lost a partner and they said, we had been doing business reviews with them. We, had been giving them recommendations, etc. But when they went back to look and really dig in and do an autopsy of the partner, they realized they had been doing business reviews, but they were getting the account manager. They were not getting the CEO at the table. They weren't getting the budget holder at the table. They said they had determined that they were going to be quarterly business reviews, but they kind of slipped to 6 months. And because they had still done a business review, they didn't really note it as being out of cadence. They had been providing recommendations, but when they went back to look, even though they had been paying their managed service bill for years, they had not accepted a new project recommendation in over a year. And they felt that that had kind of stalled the relationship. And then lastly, they hadn't done anything to improve their stack percentage in quite a while, right? Because they hadn't accepted any of those recommendations. So they said, if we had been able to score the business review every time we did one and answer these questions, we would have been able to see this along the way. So that is why we had came up with these particular questions, which I think, what are thoughts on that? Are there other questions that you think about in terms of scoring an individual business review that come to mind? Or is that sort of?
I like the idea of it. That makes a whole lot of sense. I wonder like how it would maybe report in aggregate, like a running score or some kind of overview, or how you would be notified, hey, this is a bad thing that we're noticing. Kind of like when we log in and we get pop-ups of, hey, you've got these things overdue or these things are missing.
Yep. So I think some headlines around that makes sense.
Right? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
As opposed to having to dig in and do like more post-mortem, like, hey, attention, this is a bad thing.
Yep.
And then maybe being able to set what dictates a bad thing, like what those thresholds are, or like what we determine what that is, based on that scoring.
So first, let me show you where you can add new questions if you do come up with some. So in the Business Review Manager, top right where you have settings, you can now edit standards. So you can see here the 4 that come out of the gate. If you don't like them, you can delete them. If you want to add a new one, you just create the new question, etc. Again, this only populates if you have customer success, because that is where we're going to do the reporting that John is talking about. So I'm going to actually go to the development. So this is the dev site, so you won't be able to see this. But if you look down the left-hand side and compare it to what you're looking at, maybe you see a new line called Insights. And so, John, this is kind of addressing the next piece. This is our first step in moving to the green, yellow, red. So let me make this a little bigger. So this is in creative designs. If you had the next meeting date and the last meeting date, what your last meeting score was, and the change, right? So it went up 13 points since your last business review. You can see the account managers, company effort, company health segment, total tech debt, number of completed recommendations, right? The cost, declined recommendations, number of recommendations not started. So we're really adding a lot of pieces. So here you can see that yes, partial. You can see Dylan's still working on it because here's his test score. But you can also manage these columns to build your version of this report, because we really are going to try to drive exactly that information that you just mentioned.
So Marnie, kind of a sub question on the previous page with the questions. Is there a way to dictate the weighting, kind of like we do with data quality?
So there is not right now, but that is a good point. I will write that down.
Okay.
What else are folks thinking? The other piece I wanted to make sure we talked about today was recommendations, because we did add, we had talked about it on this call, the ability to add tags. So you can now tag those recommendations. So that's already out in the wild. I know a lot of folks on this call really liked the idea and had some different thoughts on it. I'm curious if anybody has come up with any new ideas on how to use tags since we first released it. No, just happy to have them to be able to use them for those use cases that we were aiming for.
I like it. I know that one of the things that we do with our tags is we tag them, not necessarily like how we've chosen to set up how we're using tags is not directly related to our agreement types, like, standard, plus, platinum, or whatever, silver, bronze, gold. But we have specific tags for like security recommendations or insurance requirements. And so when we have stack items that are specifically outside of what would be included in our total complete agreements that are maybe insurance requirements, like maybe specific types of SIM or pen testing or something like that, we tie that to the recommendations so we can say, hey, we're aware of what your insurance requirements are. This is the recommendation that's tied to that piece. So it kind of helps tell that story or dictate the type of meeting we have. So that the QBR is focused on insurance requirements for this next year or whatever, because we also track that in contracts. So we can tie it all together. So we're using tags that way to kind of help dictate the story and also show, hey, these are our recommendations. This is what we're doing. And then we can say, you've declined it or whatever, which is always nice. If something ever does happen, then we have paper trail and we have recommendation trail. But more it's to say, hey, are we misaligned? Like our recommendations are coming through and they're not being accepted. Like how important is this? Maybe let's realign here or see what's going on. So that's kind of how we're using tags, I think, pretty effectively in that way.
Love the insurance one, because I find the insurance piece, if you're not having the conversation with them, insurance is, and who knows that they're getting the right information, but it's also showing the it's not just it's additional evidence and support for the conversations. I love that idea. I'm stealing that one.
We do the same thing for like HIPAA compliance for our healthcare. So we have HIPAA tags or healthcare tags that we're using. We're kind of vacillating between them. They're blue for that.
Perfect. Yeah. I like it. Excellent.
Marnie, you've got option 1 as one of the stages here. Is that because you guys are still pursuing the kind of dependent scenario editor you've been talking about before?
Yeah. We want to look at ways to be able to project different budgets. And so that was Alex on a demo was talking through that. So we're looking at updating some budget pieces. I don't know where they are with this was just us using this as a possibility, right? If we filtered by all of option 1, it would populate the budget one way. But that is Yeah, that's why that's there for sure.
Okay, I was worried that it was instead of. I'm really excited about the possibility of those. Like we have clients all the time who are like, I think I want to go pure serverless and all the way in the cloud. And then it's like, well, then you don't need
Like,
you
yeah,
don't need a UPS, and you don't need a renewal for your data backup, and you don't like it, all these contingencies get in place.
yep, yep. No, I think that's exactly along those lines for sure.
I've been using tags similarly to say like this is a security improvement. So we can just say, let's look at just security improvements versus IT debt
Yeah.
stuff that's there for replacing IT debt problems. I've also been tagging the ones that I know I want to talk about this meeting, and I mark them as needs to be unpacked because I know I'm going to talk about them. And then any of them that we do talk about in the meeting, if there's a to do, I flag them as unpack. And then
Oh,
everybody on my team knows that I'm still unpacking them until I remove the tag. Like I was still doing something with this, which has been nice. Another one that I want to use, but I haven't built yet is sometimes I put something in Q3 as it has to be done for a reason by Q3. And other times I put it in Q3 because we need a decision by Q3.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I've been talking through some kind of like, I want the date to be able to move around, and I want the stage that they're in to still be like we've discussed, not necessarily quoted or whatever the different stages are, but I want to track like this is a rigid deadline tied to it. Don't move
yeah.
this without realizing that you're breaking a possible like due date.
Like the serve Windows 2012 servers, right? You
Yeah.
can't, that one's got to be hard red. Yeah, no, I get that. That makes sense.
So sometimes I drop them in because they're due by, and sometimes I drop them in because it's a decision by. Those were the two I was thinking about
Oh,
using the tags,
yeah, I like that.
but I haven't done
That
it
is
yet.
that is a great scenario case scenario type of example that I can tell people. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's always good to have those use cases for sure. Anything else?
I had one more, sorry. I also have been tagging as cost control because people really like seeing the ones that are like, oh, this is about
Oh,
controlling costs.
smart. Yeah. I do want to talk a little bit about, so wait, I'm going to go back to this scheduler for one thing into a business review. So as you could see from what we're looking at in the reporting, is it will be really important in an individual business review to grab account manager, to score the business review, and to move the meeting status. So I'm often one that if it's not on my to-do list, right, and I know I've done it, I don't necessarily think to go back and change the status to complete, but I think that's going to drive some of the reporting. So add that to the process. When you've finished your business review, you go back in, you add your notes, etc. Move that to complete. Because you can see that all of that, like completed recommendations, same thing. So not just in your business review itself, but in the recommendation as well. So when you're in a single recommendation, to grab it, say we did this demo replacement one, and move this to complete, because that's going to trigger in the reporting. It's going to basically associate that money to that business review. So you're going to be able to start seeing, oh, I've done like I closed 4 recommendations, right? I gave them 7, or I closed 1 and I gave them 7, right? That's a very different conversation. And to be able to see what that's driving, imagine the metrics we can pull around that. And as I mentioned, like all of our other reports, you can choose how to build this report to really start getting the information that you want. So this won't go out this weekend. It'll go out the following weekend. So I think that, so it won't be Easter weekend, it'll be the next. I think that will really add to what we're putting into customer success. The other pieces that we're moving toward is in the goals section. We want to work on the UI a bit, to make the goal piece just a little friendlier to use. and we want to add notes. So we want to add, Steve, like the notes you were talking about in health and in effort, we want to be able to add a note, but we actually going to add notes everywhere. So we're going to do a flyout from the right is what we're thinking, where you can basically associate a note to any element of the tool. So you could associate a note to an asset. You could associate a note to a business review. You could associate a note to the user list, but you could see a scrolling list of all of the notes as you go, and then you could tag them. The longer term view, the next view will be then on the agenda, you could say, I want to talk about these notes, and kind of use that to build the agenda. So that's where we're going with it. Again, that's all in flux, and we're still working toward it. And as we said, we now have some more assets to help us working toward business reviews. We just hired another developer, as a matter of fact. So we're really aiming to drive more of that. So, think through those things as we're working toward this, because we're aiming to make it the place where your account managers can really do all their work. So does anybody else have for me? I knew this would be a shorter one, but I wanted to make sure I had follow-up and make sure I could show you what else was coming in reporting. Like I said, I didn't know at the time we would also be making an announcement today, but I'm glad I got to do that as well.
The leftover question from when you were traveling, we were going back and forth with the stack alignments. Was it stack alignment?
Yeah, the sorting order
segment. Yes.
So it is supposed to sort in the order that we see in here. And I saw your note. I was hoping, I sent it over, but these are not holding if you reorder.
No, it's if you go now and try to do the report, like look at a report for specific, this part works fine. It's the output that's my problem. So if I want to look at a particular customer and see it, it doesn't sort it.
Oh,
okay, that's different. Yeah, well, no, it's not. There you go. See how it's not sorting it the same way?
yeah, I definitely do. I was just looking to see if I refreshed, if it took a minute, because I had checked it before and it definitely did sort. So I wonder. Yeah, that sort order should hold. I will.
Yeah, I mean, I did all the setup, and I didn't even look at it. I got in, just on a run of what I was trying to accomplish, accomplished it, and said, oh, let me see how that looks on the report, or on the screen. And it didn't quite go where I wanted it to go.
Yep. Okay. I'll circle back on that one.
We've had too many conversations that if you put it in, it's got to come out cleanly. So I knew we were on the same page with this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else have questions or things that they've tried to do in the last couple of weeks?
Marty, on the business reviews, is there a way to link an assessment directly to it?
Not from inside the assessment. Inside the assessment locker, you could associate.
So only once the assessment is done, we can capture it and attach it. Okay. Yeah. The use case we have is we have a light check-in we do with every account, and we wrote an assessment for it. And I want the business review to say, run the assessment to drive it. So it gets assigned.
Yep. That makes sense. Associate before completing. What else we got? Anything?
We didn't give you enough yet? I'm sure we can come up with more.
So I'm a 0 inbox girl, and I'm currently looking at 93 in my inbox. So as other people have apparently given me things to talk about today.
That 93 is gross.
If it gets to a full 144, it would be completely gross. All right. Was anyone offended if we wrap up early? I won't tell anybody that you got out of a meeting early.
Except it's on the recording.
I'll cut the last minute out. How's that? All right.
I
Well-
have 10,026 items in my inbox.
Okay, you're not a zero inbox. Now, let's be clear. My personal inbox, I don't clear the way I clear my work one, but my work one, everything must be addressed every day or I'd never be able to keep up. So my personal ones have 19,000 and 40,000. So that's more like regular behavior. But if I don't get my work inbox down to zero, that means somebody's not getting feedback, and that's just not okay with me. So thank you.
I don't know how you do it. I have to be at 0 by 9-10 p.m. or else I'm up like 1-2 o'clock just trying to figure out why I have so many emails. And most of it is just sales from like, hey, Nike or something like that because I bought something. I just want to delete them so it's nice and fresh for tomorrow. I don't know how you guys do it. That's crazy.
All right, well then I will let all go. Have a great one. Hope to see everybody tomorrow. Again, if you see us out on social, give us a shout out. Everybody else is, so we'd love to.
Are you rescheduling, is it Kyle for the third part in Alex's series?
So Kyle is now, I actually have the link to that. I can pull that up. So if you haven't seen the webinars that Kyle and Alex have been doing, Mark, can you go grab the 2 recorded ones from YouTube and I'll grab the link to the next one. This one is called Heads Up, You're Doing It Wrong. You're doing VCIO wrong and we have KPIs to prove it. So this will be about KPIs for VCIOs. So that is the registration page for that. And then Mark is putting in the first one, which was about account managers, and the second one, which was about customer success managers. And we've gotten tons of great feedback on that.
They were really good discussions. It gave me things to think about, which I appreciate.
Excellent.
I just like both their rooms. Like Kyle's room looks amazing with all that, music and guitars and whatnot. And Alex's room is just full of toys, just like mine. And I'm like, how do I incorporate guitars on my window so I can just make it fuller? But yeah, I like the rooms. Of course, I like their chats too. Come on, guys.
There's some I'd like to. Yeah.
You are being recorded, Mark. Just keep that in mind.
It's all good. It's an emotional outburst.
All right. Well, I will let everybody go. Again, reach out if you need anything. If I'm a little slow to emails today, I will get you by the weekend for sure.
Have a good weekend.
Have a good one.
Congratulations.
Thanks,
Thanks, Lonnie.